Commander Elena Vasquez was drinking her morning coffee when the universe changed forever. The hot liquid spilled across her desk as the emergency alarm screamed through the space station. Red lights flashed in every corridor of Earth Defense Command. "What's the situation?" Elena asked as she rushed into the control room. Her uniform was still wrinkled from sleep, but her eyes were sharp and ready. Lieutenant Johnson turned from his screen, his face white with fear. "Commander, we're getting readings from Titan 7. Something big just woke up near Alpha Centauri." Elena looked at the main display screen. Numbers and graphs filled the monitor, but she didn't need to understand all the technical details. The energy readings were impossible. Whatever was out there was putting out more power than their entire solar system. "How big are we talking?" she asked. "Ma'am, it's roughly the size of Earth's moon, but the energy output, it's like a small star just turned on." Elena felt ice in her stomach. In her 20 years of military service, she had never seen readings like these. "Get me Dr. Marcus Chen from the archaeology department. Now." While she waited, Elena studied the data coming from their deep space monitoring station. Titan 7 was humanity's most advanced early warning system, placed at the edge of known space. If something out there was strong enough to wake up their sensors, it meant trouble. Dr. Chen arrived 15 minutes later, his gray hair messy and his glasses crooked. He was Earth's leading expert on ancient alien civilizations, though most people thought his work was just academic nonsense. "You need to see this, Marcus," Elena said, pointing to the screen. "Something massive just activated near Alpha Centauri. We need to know if you've seen anything like this before." Dr. Chen adjusted his glasses and looked at the readings. His face went from confusion to horror in seconds. Oh no, no. What is it?" "Elena, I need access to the historical databases. All of them. And I need coffee. Lots of coffee." For the next 6 hours, Dr. Chen worked without stopping. Elena watched him dig through ancient texts, archaeological reports, and translation files. She had never seen the old scientist work so frantically. Finally, Dr. Chen looked up from his computer. His hands were shaking. "Elena, I found something, but you're not going to like it." "Tell me." "Every ancient civilization we've studied has stories about something they called different names. The Atlanteans called them Star Eaters. The Martian ruins mentioned the Harvesters of Light. Even Earth's oldest myths talk about monsters that swallow suns." Elena felt her blood turn cold. "You think this thing is one of those?" "I think this thing is the one. The original. The first and most powerful Star-Demolisher ever created." Dr. Chen pulled up images on his screen. Ancient cave paintings showed massive objects in space surrounded by dying stars. Alien hieroglyphs told stories of entire solar systems being consumed by hungry machines. According to these records, it was built by a civilization that died out 50,000 years ago. They called themselves the Architects. They created this thing as the ultimate weapon, but something went wrong. The weapon turned on its creators and destroyed them. Then it went to sleep. Elena stared at the ancient images, and now it's awake. Yes. And if the old stories are true, it's going to start feeding again. Feeding on what? Stars, Elena. It eats stars and uses their energy to grow stronger. The room fell silent except for the humming of computers. Elena looked at the energy readings again. The object was still growing brighter. "How do we stop it?" Dr. Chen shook his head. "According to every record I can find, no one ever has. Every civilization that encountered it was wiped out. That's why all we have left are warnings carved in stone and metal." Elena stood up and walked to the main communications panel. "Get me Admiral Torres at Fleet Command. Priority Alpha." While she waited for the connection, Elena thought about her daughter back on Earth. Sarah was only 12 years old. She deserved to grow up in a universe that wasn't being eaten by an ancient nightmare. Admiral Torres appeared on the screen. He was a big man with gray hair and tired eyes. "Elena, what's so urgent that you're waking me up at 3 in the morning?" "Sir, we have a situation. A big one." Elena quickly explained what they had discovered. She watched Admiral Torres's face grow more serious with each word. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "How long do we have?" he finally asked. "Unknown, sir. But if Dr. Chen is right, this thing is going to start moving toward populated systems soon. It needs to feed, and we're the closest source of stars." "Understood. I'm calling an emergency session of the Defense Council. We need to mobilize every ship we have." "Sir, with respect, our ships might not be enough." This thing has been sleeping for 50,000 years and it just woke up stronger than ever. Admiral Torres leaned forward on the screen. Elena, in my 40 years of service, I've learned one thing about humanity. We don't give up, ever. If this thing wants a fight, we'll give it one hell of a fight. After the call ended, Elena looked out the window of the space station. Stars filled the black sky, looking peaceful and eternal. But now she knew that somewhere out there, an ancient monster was waking up with an appetite for those same stars. Dr. Chen was still working at his computer. Elena, I'm finding more information. The Star-Demolisher, they called it Charybdis in some of the later records. Like the monster from Greek mythology? Exactly. A creature that swallowed ships whole. But this Charybdis swallows entire solar systems. Elena watched the energy readings continue to climb. Whatever was out there was getting stronger by the hour. Soon it would start moving, and when it did, every living thing in the galaxy would be in danger. She thought about all the species they had met in their expansion into space. The peaceful Centauri traders, the wise vegan philosophers, the proud warrior clans of the Rigel system. None of them had ever faced anything like this. But humans were different. Throughout their history, whenever something impossible threatened them, they found a way to fight back. They didn't know the meaning of surrender. Elena opened a communication channel to every human colony, every space station, every ship in the fleet. This is Commander Elena Vasquez of Earth Defense Command. As of this moment, humanity is at war with the greatest threat our species has ever faced. We don't know how to stop it yet, but we're going to figure it out. That's what humans do. We survive. We adapt, we fight, and we never ever give up. She looked at Dr. Chen, who was still studying the ancient warnings. Marcus, keep digging. Find me everything you can about this thing. How it works, how it thinks, how it can be hurt. There has to be something. Elena, what if there isn't? What if this time we really can't win? Elena smiled, but there was steel in her eyes. Then we'll make sure that when this thing kills us, it chokes on us. Humanity doesn't go quietly into the dark. Outside, the stars continued to shine, unaware that something ancient and hungry was coming for them. But on Earth and the colonies, on every human ship and station, people were beginning to prepare for the fight of their lives. The first Star-Demolisher had awakened after 50,000 years of sleep. It was time for Earth to show the galaxy what humans were really made of. 3 days after Charybdis awakened, humanity sent its best diplomats to make first contact. Captain Rodriguez led a fleet of 12 ships toward the ancient construct, following every protocol Earth had developed for meeting new alien species. This is Captain Rodriguez of the Earth vessel Harmony. He broadcast on all frequencies. We come in peace. We wish to communicate with you. Admiral Torres watched the mission from Earth Defense Command, his hands gripping his chair. Elena stood beside him, studying the tactical displays. Dr. Chen was in the background, still searching through ancient texts for anything that might help. Energy readings are stable, Lieutenant Johnson reported. The construct isn't showing any aggressive behavior. Elena wasn't convinced. Something that had destroyed entire civilizations didn't just forget how to be dangerous. On the main screen, they could see Captain Rodriguez's ships approaching Charybdis. The ancient weapon looked like a dark moon covered in strange geometric patterns. Lights pulsed across its surface in hypnotic rhythms. It's beautiful, someone whispered in the command center. So is a black hole, Elena replied, until it kills you. Captain Rodriguez continued his attempts to communicate. He tried radio waves, laser pulses, mathematical sequences, even music. For 2 hours, his team broadcast every form of peaceful contact they could think of. Then Charybdis responded. The construct's lights suddenly changed from gentle pulses to rapid flashing. Energy readings spiked across the board. Warning alarms began screaming in the command center. Rodriguez, get out of there now, Admiral Torres shouted into his microphone. But it was too late. Charybdis opened like a massive flower, revealing a core of swirling energy that hurt to look at. Tendrils of pure force reached out and wrapped around Rodriguez's ships. The 12 vessels, each one carrying 1,000 brave souls, were pulled toward the construct's center. Elena watched in horror as the ships were torn apart, not by weapons or explosions, but by some process that converted their matter into pure energy. The metal hulls, the advanced computers, the life support systems. Everything was transformed into bright light that flowed into Charybdis like rivers of fire. The life signs, Dr. Chen whispered, staring at his readings. They're not dying. They're being absorbed. In less than 60 seconds, 12,000 people simply ceased to exist. Not dead, not destroyed. Absorbed into something that was already ancient when their world was young. The command center fell silent except for the soft beeping of computers. Admiral Torres sat down heavily in his chair, suddenly looking much older than his years. "Sir," Lieutenant Johnson said quietly, "Charybdis is moving." On the screen, the massive construct had begun to shift position. It was no longer drifting aimlessly through space. Now it had purpose, and it was heading toward the nearest star system. "Where is it going?" Elena asked. "Kepler 442, Dr. Chen replied, checking his star charts. "Red dwarf star with 3 planets. No intelligent life that we know of, but there are some mining colonies." Elena grabbed the communications panel. "Get me Colony Administrator Walsh at Kepler 442. Emergency priority." Administrator Walsh appeared on screen minutes later. He was a weathered man who had spent most of his life managing mining operations on distant worlds. "Commander Vasquez, what can I do for you?" "Walsh, you need to evacuate your system now, today. Use every ship you have." "What's the emergency?" Elena quickly explained about Charybdis. She watched Walsh's face change from confusion to disbelief to terror. "You're telling me there's something out there that eats stars? We just watched it absorb 12 ships and 12,000 people like they were nothing. It's heading your way, and we estimate arrival in 18 hours. 18 hours? We have 30,000 colonists spread across 3 planets. I can't evacuate that many people in 18 hours. Elena felt sick. "Do what you can. Save who you can." While evacuation ships raced to save the Kepler colonies, Elena worked with Dr. Chen to understand their enemy better. The ancient texts were full of warnings, but short on practical information. Here, Dr. Chen pointed to a section of translated Martian hieroglyphs. "This says the Star Eaters could drink the fire of suns and make it their own strength. So it really does eat stars? Not just eat them. It converts stellar matter into some kind of exotic energy that makes it stronger. The more stars it consumes, the more powerful it becomes." Elena studied the tactical projections on her screen. If Charybdis could grow stronger by eating stars, then every system it destroyed would make it harder to stop. 18 hours later, they watched Charybdis arrive at the Kepler 442 system. The evacuation ships had managed to save about 8,000 colonists, but over 20,000 people were still on the planets when the ancient weapon began to feed. The process was terrifying in its simplicity. Charybdis positioned itself near the red dwarf star and extended massive energy collectors. It didn't destroy the star with explosions or violence. Instead, it simply began draining the stellar fire directly into its core. Elena watched the star dim and die over the course of 6 hours. The planets, suddenly cut off from their sun's warmth, became frozen rocks drifting in the dark. The colonists who couldn't be evacuated died not from weapons, but from the simple fact that their star was gone. When Charybdis finished feeding, it was noticeably brighter than before. Energy readings showed it was now 30% more powerful than when it first awakened. "Sir," Lieutenant Johnson reported, his voice shaking, "long-range sensors show movement in the Vega system, the Altair colonies, and the Centauri trading posts. They're all evacuating." Elena understood. Word was spreading through the galaxy faster than Charybdis could move. Every species that had heard about the Star-Demolisher was running for their lives. "What about the Rigel Defense Fleet?" Admiral Torres asked. "They have some of the strongest ships in known space. They've pulled back to defensive positions around their home worlds," Johnson replied. "Same with the Centauri and the Vegans. Everyone's retreating to their core systems." Elena felt a cold anger building in her chest. She understood why the other species were retreating. It was the smart thing to do. But it meant that humanity was facing this threat alone. "Admiral," she said, "I recommend we pull our outer colonies back as well. Consolidate our defenses around Earth and the core worlds." Admiral Torres looked at her for a long moment. "Elena, in all your years of service, have you ever known humanity to retreat from a fight?" Elena thought about her daughter Sarah, safe on Earth for now. She thought about the 12,000 souls that Charybdis had absorbed. She thought about the 20,000 colonists who had died in the cold dark when their star was stolen. "No, sir," she replied. "We don't retreat." "Then we're going to do what humans have always done when faced with impossible odds. We're going to attack." Dr. Chen looked up from his research. "Attack, Elena? This thing just casually murdered a star. Our biggest weapons are like throwing rocks at a mountain." Admiral Torres smiled grimly. Maybe so, Doc, but sometimes when you throw enough rocks, even a mountain notices. On the main screen, Charybdis was already moving toward its next target. The ancient Star-Demolisher was hunting again after 50,000 years of sleep, and it was hungry for more stellar fire. But for the first time in galactic history, its prey was going to fight back. Humanity was about to show the universe that some species don't know when to quit, and that sometimes stubbornness was the most dangerous weapon of all. Captain Sarah Mitchell was known throughout the fleet as someone who shouldn't be allowed near expensive equipment. She had crashed more ships in training than most pilots flew in their entire careers. Her psychological profile was filled with words like reckless, unpredictable, and slightly unhinged, which was exactly why Elena had chosen her for the most important mission in human history. "Let me understand this correctly," Captain Mitchell said, leaning back in her chair with a grin. "You want me to fly directly at the thing that eats stars and annoy it?" Elena nodded. Dr. Chen has been analyzing the data from when Charybdis absorbed Rodriguez's ships. He thinks he's found something. Dr. Chen adjusted his glasses nervously. The absorption process isn't random. Charybdis operates on what I can only describe as quantum consciousness principles. It reads and processes the quantum signatures of everything it encounters. In normal people language, please, Captain Mitchell said. It thinks, and like anything that thinks, it can be confused. Elena pulled up a holographic display showing the battle plans. Every civilization that faced this thing before tried to fight it with logic. Organized formations, predictable attack patterns, strategic retreats. They all failed. But humans, Dr. Chen continued, getting excited. Humans are chaos. We're emotional, irrational, and completely unpredictable. Our quantum signatures are messy in a way that might overload Charybdis's processing systems. Captain Mitchell's grin got wider. "So you want me to be as crazy as possible?" "We want you to be human," Elena said. "The most human you can possibly be." 3 days later, Captain Mitchell led a squadron of humanity's most unstable pilots toward Charybdis. Her wingmen included Lieutenant Park, who had been court-martialed twice for ignoring orders, Sergeant Williams, who painted flames on his ship and played heavy metal music during combat, and Pilot Chen, no relation to Dr. Chen, who once flew a damaged fighter backwards through an asteroid field while singing opera. They were, by any reasonable military standard, the worst pilots in the fleet, which made them perfect for this job. "This is Chaos Squadron," Mitchell announced as they approached the Star-Demolisher. "We're here to make your day really, really weird." Charybdis had grown even larger since feeding on the Kepler star. It now measured nearly twice the size of Earth's moon, and its surface crawled with geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly. Energy discharges flickered between massive spines that jutted from its hull like the ribs of some impossible beast. "Okay, people," Mitchell said to her squadron. "Remember the plan. There is no plan. Everyone just do the stupidest thing you can think of." Lieutenant Park immediately began flying in a figure-8 pattern, while broadcasting the recipe for his grandmother's kimchi. Sergeant Williams started ramming his ship into space debris, while screaming the lyrics to ancient rock songs. Pilot Chen began performing barrel rolls at random intervals while reciting poetry in 3 different languages. Captain Mitchell, not to be outdone, flew her fighter directly at Charybdis while playing a recording of Earth's most annoying pop songs at maximum volume. The effect was immediate and stunning. Charybdis, which had been moving in a straight line toward its next target, suddenly stopped. Its surface lights began flashing in erratic patterns. Energy readings fluctuated wildly as the ancient construct tried to process what it was encountering. "It's working," Elena shouted from the command center back on Earth. "The quantum interference is disrupting its navigation systems." On her ship, Captain Mitchell watched the massive alien weapon seem to hesitate. For the first time in 50,000 years, Charybdis was confused. "That's right, you big ugly space monster," she said, diving her fighter between 2 of its massive spines. "Welcome to humanity." But their success was short-lived. After several minutes of chaos, Charybdis began to adapt. Its lights stabilized into new patterns and it started moving again. Worse, it was learning. Energy beams lashed out from the construct, targeting Mitchell's squadron with deadly precision. Lieutenant Park's ship was hit first, converted into energy so quickly he didn't even have time to scream. Sergeant Williams lasted a few seconds longer, long enough to transmit one final, "Eat this, you cosmic freak," before his fighter was absorbed. Captain Mitchell found herself alone, dodging between massive weapons that were learning to predict her chaotic flying patterns. "Mitchell, get out of there," Elena ordered over the radio. "Not yet," Mitchell replied, pulling her ship into an impossible spinning dive that should have torn her fighter apart. "I'm not done annoying this thing." She managed to survive for another 2 minutes using every crazy flying trick she had ever learned. But eventually, even her unpredictable patterns weren't enough. Charybdis caught her ship in an energy web and began pulling her toward its core. As her fighter was torn apart around her, Captain Mitchell transmitted her final report. "Elena, this thing learns fast, but it's still thinking like a machine. Hit it with something it can't predict. Hit it with something impossible." Her transmission cut off as her ship was converted to energy, but her sacrifice had given humanity valuable information. Dr. Chen studied the battle recordings for hours, analyzing how Charybdis had adapted to their chaotic attack patterns. "Elena, I think I understand now," he said finally. "Charybdis operates on pure logic even when it's adapting. It learns by finding patterns and creating counters. But what if we hit it with something that has no pattern at all?" "What do you mean?" "Human emotion. Pure, raw, unfiltered human emotion." Elena frowned. "How do we weaponize emotion?" Dr. Chen smiled for the first time since this crisis began. "Elena, what's the most human emotion of all?" She thought about Captain Rodriguez and his crew, absorbed without warning. She thought about the colonists who died when their star was stolen. She thought about Sarah Mitchell, who had died protecting people she would never meet. "Anger," she said. "Humans get angry." "Exactly. And when humans get angry, we don't think logically anymore. We act on pure instinct and emotion." That's something Charybdis has never encountered before. Over the next week, Elena worked with Fleet Command to develop a new strategy. Instead of organized military units, they would send wave after wave of volunteers, people who had lost friends and family to the Star-Demolisher. People who were too angry to think straight. The call went out across all human colonies. "Do you want revenge against the thing that's destroying our worlds? Then come and take it." The response was overwhelming. Miners from the outer colonies volunteered to ram their heavy equipment ships into Charybdis. Freighter captains offered to load their cargo holds with explosives and fly suicide missions. Even civilian transport pilots stepped forward, ready to die if it meant hurting the monster that had killed their friends. Elena looked at the list of volunteers and felt her heart break. These weren't trained soldiers. They were ordinary people who had decided they'd rather die fighting than live in fear. But they were also exactly what humanity needed. Every volunteer was driven by pure human emotion, anger, grief, love, and the stubborn refusal to give up that had defined their species since they first looked up at the stars. "Admiral," Elena reported, "we have over 10,000 volunteer ships ready for the next assault." Admiral Torres nodded grimly. "And what about you, Elena? Are you ready to lead them?" Elena thought about her daughter Sarah, safe in the underground shelters on Earth. She thought about the future her child deserved, a universe where ancient monsters couldn't steal the light from the sky. "Sir, I've been ready since this thing first woke up." Charybdis was approaching the Altair system now, preparing to feed on another star. But this time it wouldn't face organized military units or logical battle plans. This time, it was going to meet 10,000 angry humans who had nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. And for a weapon built by a logical, calculating species, that was going to be the most dangerous thing it had ever encountered. Elena stood before the largest gathering of human ships in history. 10,000 vessels floated in space around Earth, from massive battle cruisers to tiny mining pods jury-rigged with weapons. Every ship was crewed by volunteers who knew they probably wouldn't be coming home. "This is insane," Admiral Torres said quietly, standing beside Elena on the bridge of the flagship Defiance. "We're about to feed our entire fleet to that thing." "Not feed," Elena corrected. "Force feed." Dr. Chen was making final calculations on his tablet, his hands shaking with exhaustion and caffeine. For the past week, he had been working around the clock on Operation Prometheus, humanity's most desperate gambit yet. "Elena, are you sure about this?" he asked for the 100th time. "The energy calculations are theoretical at best. We could end up just making Charybdis stronger." Elena looked out at the volunteer fleet. She could see freighters loaded with nuclear weapons, passenger ships converted into flying bombs, and even a few luxury yachts whose wealthy owners had decided to die fighting rather than running. Marcus, every conventional attack has failed. Every logical strategy has been adapted to and countered. This is our last chance to try something impossible. The plan was simple in its madness. Instead of trying to starve or poison Charybdis, they would give it exactly what it wanted: energy. But they would force-feed it so much raw power that its systems would overload and shut down. Every nuclear weapon humanity had ever built was being converted into exotic matter bombs. Every ship's reactor was being overcharged to critical levels. When they hit Charybdis, they wouldn't be trying to damage it. They would be trying to choke it to death on pure energy. The thing is, Dr. Chen continued nervously, someone has to deliver the main payload directly to Charybdis's core. The exotic matter bombs won't work unless they're detonated from inside its quantum matrix. Elena had already made that decision. The mission required someone to fly into the heart of the Star-Demolisher and manually trigger the overload. It was a one-way trip, and she wouldn't ask anyone else to take it. "I'll handle the delivery," she said. Admiral Torres shook his head. "Elena, I can't let you do this. You're too valuable to the war effort." "Sir, with respect, what war effort? This is it. This is humanity's last stand. Either this works or we're all dead anyway." Before Admiral Torres could argue further, Lieutenant Johnson's voice crackled over the intercom. "Commander, we're getting reports from the Altair system. Charybdis has started feeding on the star." Elena activated the main display screen. Long-range sensors showed Charybdis in the process of draining another sun, growing even larger and more powerful. They were running out of time. "All ships," Elena announced over the fleet communication channel. "This is Operation Prometheus. We're going to do something that no species in galactic history has ever attempted. We're going to charge straight into hell and drag that monster down with us." A cheer went up across 10,000 ships. It wasn't the disciplined response of a military fleet. It was the wild yell of ordinary people who had decided to fight the impossible. Elena's ship, loaded with the largest exotic matter bomb ever created, led the charge toward Charybdis. Behind her flew miners and merchants, soldiers and scientists, grandparents and teenagers who had lied about their age to join the fight. As they approached the Altair system, Elena could see the Star-Demolisher clearly for the first time. It had grown to nearly 3 times the size of Earth's moon, its surface covered in energy collectors that pulsed with stolen starlight. It was beautiful and terrifying, a work of art created by a civilization that had forgotten the difference between the two. "Charybdis has detected our approach," Dr. Chen reported. "Energy readings are spiking. It's preparing to defend itself." Elena smiled grimly. "Then let's give it something to defend against." All ships begin attack pattern chaos. What followed was the most unorganized, chaotic, beautiful battle in human history. 10,000 ships swarmed toward Charybdis from every direction, with no formation, no plan, no strategy beyond hurt the thing that's been hurting us. Miners in heavy cargo haulers rammed themselves into Charybdis's energy collectors while singing drinking songs. Passenger ships loaded with explosives dove into the construct's defensive systems while broadcasting messages of love to families back home. Even the luxury yachts proved useful, their owners using their ships' advanced sensors to paint targets for the military vessels. Charybdis fought back with weapons that turned space itself into a killing field. Energy beams lashed out in all directions, converting entire ships into raw matter. Gravitational fields grabbed fighters and crushed them into tiny balls of metal. Reality-warping fields made some ships simply cease to exist, but for every ship destroyed, 2 more took its place. The human fleet was like an ocean of angry wasps, impossible to stop because there were too many targets and none of them were behaving predictably. Elena watched hundreds of friends and strangers die around her as she piloted her ship toward Charybdis's core. Each death made her more determined to reach her target. These people were dying to give her this chance, and she wasn't going to waste it. "Elena," Dr. Chen's voice came through her headset. "I'm reading massive quantum fluctuations from Charybdis. The overload strategy is working. It's trying to process too much chaotic input at once." For the first time since this began, Elena felt hope. The ancient weapon was struggling to adapt to humanity's complete lack of tactical sense. It had been built to fight logical opponents, not 10,000 humans who were attacking with their hearts instead of their heads. But Charybdis was learning, even under assault. Its defensive systems began targeting the largest ships first. trying to reduce the chaos by eliminating the biggest threats. Energy beams swept through space with increasing accuracy. Elena's ship shuddered as a near miss overloaded her shields. Alarms screamed in the cockpit as systems failed around her. She was less than a kilometer from Charybdis's core when her engines died. "Elena," Admiral Torres's voice crackled through the static. "Your ship is dead in space." Elena looked at her controls. Life support was failing, weapons were offline, and she was drifting helplessly toward the Star-Demolisher's surface. The exotic matter bomb in her cargo hold was still active, but she couldn't maneuver it into position. Then she heard another voice on the emergency channel. "Mom, this is Sarah. I'm coming to get you." Elena's blood turned to ice. Sarah, what are you doing here?" "You're supposed to be in the shelters. I borrowed Lieutenant Johnson's fighter." "Don't be mad." Elena watched in horror as her 12-year-old daughter's tiny fighter streaked toward her position, dodging energy beams that could have vaporized a battleship. "Sarah, get out of here right now. Not without you, Mom. And not without finishing this job." Before Elena could stop her, Sarah's fighter locked onto Elena's disabled ship with a tractor beam. The small craft shouldn't have been able to move something as large as Elena's ship, but somehow Sarah managed to drag it toward Charybdis's core. "Sarah, you can't be here. This is too dangerous." "Mom," Sarah's voice was calm and determined. "You taught me that humans don't give up. Well, I'm not giving up on you." Together, mother and daughter flew into the heart of the Star-Demolisher, while 10,000 human ships continued their chaotic assault above them. Elena realized that this was what made humanity special. Not their weapons or their technology, but their refusal to abandon each other, even when facing impossible odds. As they approached the quantum core of the ancient weapon, Elena prepared to trigger the exotic matter bomb that would either save the galaxy or destroy everything she loved. Either way, she wouldn't be facing it alone. Elena and Sarah flew deeper into Charybdis than any living being had ventured in 50,000 years. The interior of the Star-Demolisher was a maze of crystalline corridors and pulsing energy conduits that seemed to extend forever in all directions. "Mom, this place is huge," Sarah whispered, her young voice filled with awe and terror. "How are we supposed to find the core?" Elena checked her instruments, but the readings made no sense. Space itself seemed twisted inside the ancient weapon. "Follow the energy flows, sweetheart. All roads lead to the heart." As they navigated the impossible geometry of Charybdis's interior, Elena could hear the battle raging outside through her radio. 10,000 human ships were still fighting, still dying, still buying her time to complete the mission. "Elena," Admiral Torres's voice crackled through the static. "Whatever you're going to do, do it fast. We're losing ships by the hundreds." "Almost there, Admiral. Hold the line just a little longer." But as they flew deeper into Charybdis, Elena began to notice something that made her blood run cold. The walls around them weren't just made of crystalline material. They were full of faces. Thousands upon thousands of alien faces frozen in expressions of terror and pain. "Sarah, don't look at the walls," Elena said urgently. But it was too late. Sarah had already seen them. "Mom, are those—" "The crews of every ship this thing has ever absorbed," Elena confirmed grimly. "It doesn't just steal their energy, it traps their consciousness." Dr. Chen's voice came through Elena's headset, weak but determined. "Elena, I'm analyzing the quantum signatures from inside Charybdis. Those aren't just memories in the walls. Those people are still alive in there, trapped in a kind of digital hell." Elena felt sick. Every person who had ever been absorbed by Charybdis, Captain Rodriguez and his crew, the colonists from Kepler 442, countless civilizations across 50,000 years. They were all still conscious, still suffering, still aware of what had happened to them. "How many?" Elena asked. "Based on the energy patterns, billions, maybe trillions." "Elena, Charybdis isn't just a weapon. It's a prison for every soul it's ever consumed." Sarah's fighter shuddered as they approached the quantum core. The heart of Charybdis was a sphere of pure energy the size of a city, surrounded by rings of exotic matter that hurt to look at directly. "That's it," Elena said, activating the exotic matter bomb in her cargo hold. "Sarah, you need to leave, now. Get as far away from here as possible." "I'm not leaving you, Mom." "Sarah, please. This bomb is going to tear a hole in reality. You can't be here when it goes off. Then neither can you." Before Elena could argue, alarms began screaming throughout Charybdis. The ancient weapon had detected the exotic matter bomb and was mobilizing its internal defenses. Energy barriers sprang up around the quantum core and mechanical guardians began emerging from hidden alcoves. "Elena," Dr. Chen's voice was urgent. "Charybdis is trying to eject you. It's learned to recognize the bomb signature." Elena watched as massive force fields began pushing her ship away from the core. The Star-Demolisher was adapting again, trying to protect itself from humanity's final gambit. That's when Sarah did something that would be remembered in human history forever. "Mom, I have an idea, but you're not going to like it." "Sarah, no. Whatever you're thinking, no." "Remember what Dr. Chen said? Charybdis operates on logic. It can adapt to weapons and strategies, but it can't adapt to something it doesn't understand." Sarah's fighter broke away from Elena's ship and flew directly toward the quantum core, broadcasting on all frequencies. "My name is Sarah Vasquez," she announced calmly. "I'm 12 years old and I like ice cream and ponies and reading books about space adventures. I want to be an explorer when I grow up, just like my mom." Elena watched in horror as Charybdis's defenses tried to target Sarah's tiny fighter. But something strange was happening. The ancient weapons targeting systems kept wavering, unable to lock onto the small ship. "Sarah, what are you doing?" "I'm being human, Mom. Pure, innocent, 12-year-old human. This thing has never encountered anything like that before." Sarah was right. Charybdis had absorbed warriors, scientists, and adults driven by fear and desperation. But it had never encountered a child who wasn't afraid, just curious and brave and completely, utterly human. The Star-Demolisher's internal systems began fluctuating wildly as they tried to process what Sarah represented. Here was a consciousness that had no hatred, no desire for revenge, no military training. Just a little girl who loved her mother and wanted to help save the galaxy. "It's working," Dr. Chen shouted over the radio. "Charybdis can't categorize her. Its processing systems are overloading." Sarah's fighter danced through the defensive systems like a butterfly, impossible to predict or counter, and as she flew, she kept talking. "I've been learning about ancient civilizations in school. Did you know the Atlanteans had a holiday where they painted their faces blue? And the Martians built cities that looked like flowers. I think that's really pretty." Elena realized what her daughter was doing. Sarah wasn't just confusing Charybdis with her innocence. She was reminding it of all the beautiful civilizations it had destroyed, all the art and culture and wonder that it had consumed in its endless hunger. The faces in the walls began to change. Instead of terror and pain, Elena could see them responding to Sarah's words. Hope began to flicker in their trapped eyes. "Sarah," Elena said softly, "you need to get clear. I'm going to detonate the bomb." "Not yet, Mom. I think they want to help." As if responding to Sarah's words, the billions of trapped consciousness began to stir. For 50,000 years they had been prisoners, but now they had hope. They had seen something that reminded them of who they used to be before Charybdis took them. Elena watched in amazement as the energy patterns throughout Charybdis began to shift. The trapped souls weren't just responding to Sarah, they were actively fighting back against their prison. "Elena," Dr. Chen's voice was filled with wonder. "The quantum matrix is destabilizing. The absorbed consciousness are breaking free." The walls of Charybdis began to crack and fracture as billions of souls fought for their freedom. Energy cascaded through the corridors in brilliant streams of light. The ancient weapon shuddered and convulsed as its victims finally rebelled. "Now, Mom," Sarah shouted. "Do it now!" Elena triggered the exotic matter bomb just as the freed souls tore Charybdis apart from the inside. The explosion didn't just destroy the Star-Demolisher. It liberated every consciousness that had ever been trapped within its crystalline walls. Elena's last sight before the blinding flash was of billions of lights, streaming out of Charybdis like shooting stars, free at last after millennia of imprisonment. Captain Rodriguez and his crew, the Kepler colonists, representatives of countless extinct civilizations, all of them finally at peace. The explosion tore a hole in space-time itself, creating a brilliant nova that could be seen from 100 light-years away. When the light faded, Charybdis was gone, replaced by a slowly expanding cloud of exotic matter that sparkled with the colors of freedom. Elena found herself floating in space near Sarah's fighter, both of them somehow miraculously alive. Around them, the surviving ships of the human fleet were cheering and crying and broadcasting messages of victory to every corner of the galaxy. "Mom," Sarah said quietly, "look." Elena looked where her daughter was pointing and gasped. The cloud of exotic matter left by Charybdis's destruction was forming new patterns, new structures. The freed souls weren't just disappearing. They were creating something beautiful, something wonderful, something that had never existed before. A new kind of star was being born from the ashes of the Star-Demolisher. Not a nuclear furnace, but a star made of pure consciousness. The combined will and dreams of every civilization that Charybdis had ever consumed. Elena, Admiral Torres's voice came through the radio, filled with emotion. Sensors show that new star is stable. It's going to burn for billions of years, giving light and warmth to any worlds that form around it. Elena pulled her daughter's fighter close and held it tight. Around them, 10,000 human ships were heading home, carrying the news that the galaxy was safe. The Star-Demolisher was dead, its victims were free, and humanity had done something that no other species had ever managed. They had turned a weapon of destruction into a beacon of hope. As they flew back toward Earth, Elena thought about all the species that had run from Charybdis, all the civilizations that had hidden in fear. They had survived by being smart and logical and careful, but sometimes the galaxy needed something more than survival. Sometimes it needed someone willing to fly into hell itself just to help a stranger. Sometimes it needed the chaos and compassion and impossible stubbornness of the human spirit. "Mom," Sarah said as Earth grew larger in their viewports, "do you think we'll find more monsters out there?" Elena smiled, watching the new star shine behind them like a promise of better days to come. "Probably, sweetheart. But if we do, I think they're going to discover what every monster eventually learns." "What's that?" "That humans don't know when to quit. And that's exactly what makes us dangerous." The galaxy was safe, the dead were free, and humanity had proven once again that there was no force in the universe more terrifying than people who refused to give up on each other.